Anna, I think we got everything we need.
Yes! Let's go have some fun! This is nice. A perfect way to end the day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to English Over Tea, Listen and Speak. I'm Anna, and I am so glad you've decided to join us for another session of easy, natural English. Whether you're commuting, doing the dishes, or, like us, actually sitting down with a hot cup of tea, we're happy to have you here.
And I'm Dan. We're so happy you're here with us today. If you're new, subscribe so you don't miss our daily episodes. Honestly, Anna, I needed this tea today. I had, a bit of a tragic morning, actually.
A tragedy? Oh no, Dan. What happened? Did you run out of coffee beans?
Worse, I went down to that little bakery on the corner, the one with those incredible chocolate pastries. I've been thinking about them since I woke up. I get there, I'm third in line, and I see the tray. Anna, they only had one left, just one. And the guy in front of me, he took it. He didn't even look back.
Oh, the humanity. A true breakfast disaster. But, that actually fits perfectly with what we're talking about today. You said they only had one left.
I did, and it felt like a very big problem at the time. But it's funny because today we are diving into a topic that sounds simple but trips up so many learners. We're talking about the usage of had only versus only had.
Right. These are three tiny words, but just by mixing the order around or even just changing your tone of voice, you can change the entire meaning of a sentence. Before we jump into the details, and by the way, when I say jump into, I mean to start something quickly or with enthusiasm, let's acknowledge that this can be a bit of a tongue twister. A tongue twister is a phrase or sequence of words that is really difficult to say correctly because the sounds are so similar.
Had only had only. Yeah, if you say it too fast, your brain definitely starts to loop. But the good news for our listeners is that in many cases, there is actually no difference in meaning at all.
Exactly. But, and there's always a but in English, isn't there? The situation and the context are your best friends here. In spoken English, your voice does the heavy lifting, but if you're writing an email or a text, you have to be a bit more careful so you don't end up being ambiguous.
Oh, that's a great word, ambiguous. How would you explain that to someone who hasn't heard it before?
Well, if something is ambiguous, it means it's unclear because it could be understood in more than one way. It's like a puzzle where the pieces could fit into two different pictures. You're not sure which one is right until you see the context around it.
Perfect. So let's look at our first case today, case 1. This is where we have the exact same sentence, but it carries two completely different meanings depending on the situation.
Okay, I love this one. It's like a sentence with a secret identity. Let's use the sentence, I only had 2 drinks.
Okay, I only had 2 drinks. Let's set the first scene. Imagine you're hosting a dinner party. You invited 5 people and you thought you had plenty of supplies, but then you open the fridge and realize, uh-oh. You look at your guests and say, I'm so sorry, I only had 2 drinks.
Right. In that situation, you're expressing a problem. You're saying there weren't enough drinks for everyone. It's a shortage. You're feeling a bit embarrassed, maybe a little stressed. The only there is highlighting a negative limit.
Exactly. But now let's flip the script. When we flip the script, it means we reverse the situation or take the opposite approach. So, same sentence, I only had 2 drinks. But this time, imagine you were at a party last night. This morning, your friend is teasing you, saying, wow, Dan, you were really wild last night. You must have had a dozen beers.
And you want to defend yourself. You want to show that you are actually being very responsible. So you look at your friend and say, "What are you talking about? I only had 2 drinks."
Exactly. In that context, I only had 2 drinks means there was not a problem. It means the amount was small, safe, and totally fine.
Isn't that wild? The words are identical. I only had 2 drinks. But in the first scene, it's a disaster because there's not enough. In the second scene, it's a defense because it's a small amount.
This is why I always tell people that English isn't just about math or logic, it's about feeling. If you're that stressed host, your voice is going to sound, well, stressed. I only had 2 drinks. But if you're defending yourself, you sound confident. I only had 2 drinks.
It really shows how flexible the language is. We don't always need to find new, complicated words to express a new idea. Sometimes we just need a new background story.
So for our listeners, if you ever see a sentence like that and you're confused, don't panic. Look for the clues. Are they in a desert with no water, or are they at a buffet with too much food? The situation tells you if only had is a bad thing or a good thing.
That's a great rule of thumb. A rule of thumb is a broad, general principle that is based on experience rather than exact calculations. It's a handy guide to follow.
I like that. So we've seen how one sentence can have 2 identities, but what happens when the words start to move around? Like, what's the difference between had only and only had?
Oh, that's where it gets even more interesting. It's like the words are starting to dance around each other. But I think we should take a quick breath before we move into that, because it involves a little bit of a perspective shift.
I'm ready. I've got my tea, I'm hydrated even if I don't have my chocolate pastry, and I'm ready to see how these words shift.
Poor Dan. Well, listeners, stay with us because we're just getting started.
All right, everyone. Take a deep breath. Let's move slowly into our next section, Case 2. And I promise this one is much less of a headache than my missing pastry situation from earlier.
Case 2 is really interesting because we are looking at 2 different sentences. But get this, they have the exact same meaning. This is usually a huge relief for learners. It's like finding out there are 2 different roads to the same coffee shop and both of them are equally fast.
Haha, yes. You don't have to worry about making a massive mistake here. Let's consider these 2 sentences. Sentence A, we had only 1 liter of water. And sentence B, we only had 1 liter of water.
Listen closely to the word order there, everyone. In the first one, it is had only. In the second one, it is only had. 2 different structures, but they're essentially twins.
Now, imagine you are hiking in the middle of a very hot, dry desert. You have been walking for hours. The sun is beating down on you, you're sweating, you're exhausted. You check your backpack. You expect it to find 3 large bottles, but instead, disaster strikes.
Always with the dramatic stories, Dan. You should have been an actor, but it works perfectly for this. In this hiking emergency, if you say we had only 1 liter of water, or if you say we only had 1 liter of water, the message to your hiking partner is identical. You're both in trouble.
Right. Each sentence can mean that there is a problem, that we needed more than 1 liter. The situation is bad, and both phrases communicate that exact same feeling of shortage. You are thirsty, and the math does not look good.
So if they mean the exact same thing in this context, does it matter which one you use? For a beginner, the simple answer is no. You can use either one and perfectly express your idea. People will understand your problem immediately. But because we want to help you sound as natural as possible, let's break that down a little further. When I say break that down, it means to explain something by dividing it into simpler, smaller parts, so it's easier to understand.
I love a good breakdown. So here's a tiny detail. It is a small pattern native speakers use without even realizing it. In general, when the adverb only follows the verb had, the adverb is closer to the object of the sentence.
Let's look at that very clearly. No complicated grammar names, just the parts. In the sentence, we had only 1 liter of water, the verb is had, the adverb is only, the object, the thing we're talking about, is 1 liter of water. When you say had only 1 liter, the word only is hugging the object. It's right next to 1 liter.
Exactly. And putting only right next to the object helps show that there is or might be a problem. It puts a tiny bit more focus, a little bit more stress on the small amount. We had only 1 liter. It's like you are trying to zoom in on the problem. When we zoom in, it means to focus closely on one specific part of a situation to see the details better.
That's a great visual, Dan. Had only zooms in on the limitation. But remember, we are talking about very, very small shades of meaning here. In real, everyday conversation, most people will just say we only had 1 liter of water and emphasize the word one with their voice to show the problem.
Tone of voice saves the day again. It's like the secret sauce in English. Let's try another example to practice this 2 sentences, same meaning concept. Imagine you are baking a cake for a friend's birthday.
Ooh, a much happier situation than a desert hike. I love baking, though I'm more of the eat the frosting while no one is looking kind of baker.
Well, as long as you have the ingredients. Usually, baking is great, but imagine the recipe calls for 4 eggs. You open your fridge and you only have 2.
A baking emergency? Okay, so you call your friend and say, I only had 2 eggs.
Or you could say, I had only 2 eggs.
Both sentences tell me the exact same thing. You cannot bake that cake without going to the store. There is a problem, and the problem is a lack of eggs.
Exactly. And if we look at that small pattern again, saying I had only 2 eggs puts only right next to 2 eggs. It emphasizes the lack of eggs just a tiny bit more. It's like a spotlight. Had only is the spotlight.
But again, only had works perfectly too. This flexibility is actually what makes English so fun, even if it feels a little bit confusing at first. You have options. You're not locked into just one way of speaking. It's about finding the flow that feels right for you.
So true. Listeners, let's play a small situation game to lock this in. I want you to play along at home or wherever you are. To play along means to participate in an activity or a game that someone else has started. I will give you a scenario. You say either had only or only had out loud. Remember, in case 2, both are correct.
I am ready to play along. I'll be the student.
Okay, you are at the store. You want to buy a beautiful jacket that costs $50. It's the perfect color, it fits great, you're so excited. You open your wallet, you see a single $20 bill. What do you say to the cashier?
I could sigh and say, I only had $20. Or I could say, I had only $20. Both mean I'm leaving the store without that jacket. It's a very sad moment for my wardrobe.
Perfect. Notice how natural both sound in that situation. It is just about picking one and using your tone to show your disappointment. Oh man, I only had $20. The emotion does the heavy lifting.
So to summarize case 2 in a very simple way, when expressing a problem or a lack of something, had only and only had are interchangeable. They are 2 different sentences with the exact same meaning. You really don't need to overthink it.
That is a fantastic summary, Anna. Real English is not always about strict, unbreakable rules. It's often about feeling comfortable with the flow of the words. And when you're talking about not having enough of something,
Either phrase works perfectly to share your situation.
Exactly. And right now, we are flowing right along. We've seen sentences that are identical but mean different things, and sentences that are different but mean the same thing.
It's like a mirror maze in here, but don't get too relaxed because things are about to shift again as we look at how the position of that one little word, only, can actually change the entire perspective of a story. If you're still hanging in there with us, you are doing a fantastic job. We have already covered sentences that look the same but mean different things, and sentences that look different but mean the same thing. Now, listeners, we are entering the final frontier.
The final frontier. It sounds like we're launching a rocket into space, Dan. But you're right. The final frontier usually refers to the last and most difficult part of an exploration or a task. Case 3 is where we really see how the position of that one little word, only, can signal a completely different perspective on a situation.
Exactly. Case 3 is two sentences, different meanings. Let's look at our water example one more time because it is the clearest way to see this. Sentence A. We had only 1 liter of water. Sentence B. We only had 1 liter of water.
Now, we already said in case 2 that these can mean the same thing if you are in a desert and you're thirsty. But in a different context, they diverge. To diverge means to move in different directions from a common point. Usually, the sentence, we had only 1 liter of water, carries that heavy feeling of a shortage. It implies we wanted or needed more. It sounds restrictive.
Right. It's like saying that is all we had and it wasn't enough. It feels a bit like a red flag. A red flag is a warning signal that something is wrong. But now let's look at sentence B. We only had 1 liter of water. In a different context, this might mean there is absolutely no problem at all.
This is the part that trips people up. To trip someone up means to cause them to make a mistake or feel confused. How can the word only mean no problem?
Well, imagine this. Imagine there is a giant water tank filled with 500 liters of water. You and your friends go over to it and you drink a little bit. Later, the owner of the tank comes over looking all grumpy and asks, "Did you drink all my water?" And you say, "No, we only had 1 liter of water."
Oh, I see. In that case, you are using only to show that the amount you took was so small that it didn't even matter. You were saying it was just 1 liter out of 500. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. So in case 3, we see that only had is the more flexible phrase. It can mean not enough, the problem, or it can mean just a little bit, not a problem.
This is why we keep saying that context is your best friend. If you just see the words on a page, you have to be a bit of a language detective. You have to look for the clues around the sentence. Are they in a desert or are they standing next to a 500-liter tank?
Exactly. It's all about the clues. And this leads us to a very important rule of thumb for our listeners. If you want to be very clear that something is a problem or a limit, putting only after had, so had only, is a very strong way to do that. It focuses the listener's mind on the limitation.
That's a great tip, Dan. Had only is like that red flag we mentioned, saying, look at this small amount, whereas only had is more of a chameleon. A chameleon is a lizard that can change its color to match its surroundings. In English, we use it to describe something that changes its character or meaning, depending on the situation.
A chameleon. I love that. English is full of chameleons. But before we move on, there is one more very special use of these words that we have to talk about. It's a very emotional use.
You're talking about the if I had only structure, right?
Yes, this is the classic way to express regret.
Regret is such a powerful human emotion, and we have a specific way of using these words to show it. For example, if I had only been there sooner, I could have seen her.
Oh man, that sounds so sad. But look at the structure there. If I had only. In this case, had only follows the word if. We aren't just talking about how many drinks we had at a party anymore. We are talking about a wish for the past to be different.
This is what we call a past unreal conditional. It's used to talk about things in the past that were not true, things that could have happened but didn't. When you say, if I had only, you are looking back at a door that has already closed.
Let's try another one. If I had only studied harder, I would have passed the exam. I think many of us have said that one before. I definitely said it after my history final in college.
Definitely. Or if I had only known it was going to rain, I would have brought an umbrella.
Notice where only is sitting. It is tucked right between had and the past participle, words like been, studied, or known. In this specific if structure, we almost always use had only. Saying if I only had known is possible in casual speech, but if I had only known is the standard, classic way to show that deep feeling of regret.
It adds a lot of emphasis, doesn't it? It's like the word only is carrying all the weight of your wish.
It really is. So let's wrap our heads around that very quickly. To wrap your head around something means to find a way to understand something complicated or strange. If you were using if to talk about the past and you feel regret, use had only. If you're talking about how many eggs you have in your fridge, you have more choices between only had and had only.
It's amazing how much work these two little words do. They handle party supplies, desert survival, defensive arguments, and even our deepest regrets about the past.
They are small but mighty. And for our listeners, the best way to get used to this is to stop worrying so much about the rules and start listening for the situations. When you watch a movie or listen to another podcast, ask yourself, is that person expressing a problem or are they saying it's not a problem?
That is such a great piece of advice. Active listening is the fastest way to become a natural speaker. Don't just hear the words, feel the situation.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you say had only when you meant only had, 99% of the time, the other person will still understand you perfectly because of your tone and the context.
Exactly. English speakers are actually very good at understanding meaning even when the grammar isn't 100% perfect. The fact that you are trying and practicing is the most important part of the journey.
Well said, Anna. We've covered a lot of ground today. From thirsty hikers to regretful students, we've seen the many faces of had only and only had.
It's been a bit of a marathon, but a fun one. I feel like I need another cup of tea now. I think I only have one tea bag left in my jar, and that is definitely a case one problem.
Only one tea bag. That is a crisis. We might need to call it a day soon so you can go to the store. To call it a day means to decide to stop working on something.
Not yet, Dan. I can survive for a few more minutes. But before we finish up this section, I want our listeners to think of one thing they regret. Maybe something small, like if I had only bought that chocolate pastry before Dan did.
Hey, that hits a little too close to home.
Practice saying it out loud. Feel the weight of that only between had and your verb. It's a great way to make the grammar feel real.
I have some amazing news, Anna. I checked the very back of a kitchen cupboard behind the giant box of crackers, and I found a hidden box of Earl Grey.
A miracle. So we aren't facing a tea crisis after all. I guess we only had a temporary shortage.
Exactly, or we had only a few minutes of panic. Before we call it a day,
I really want to touch base with our listeners to make sure everything we've talked about today sticks. To touch base means to briefly meet or communicate with someone to stay updated or double check something.
That's a great idea. We've covered a lot, so let's put it all in a nutshell. When we say in a nutshell, we mean to describe something briefly using as few words as possible.
Perfect. So, point number 1, case 1. The exact same words can mean different things. I only had 2 drinks can be a sad story about not having enough at a party or a proud story about being responsible. It all depends on your tone and the context.
Point number 2, case 2. Sometimes the word order doesn't change the meaning at all. In a desert, we only had 1 liter of water and we had only 1 liter of water both mean you are very, very thirsty. In speech, only had is often more common, while had only can feel a bit more formal or written.
Point number 3, case 3. The word only is a bit of a chameleon. If you put it after the verb, had only, it almost always highlights a problem or a limit. But if you put it before, only had, it can sometimes mean the amount was so small it wasn't a problem at all, like taking just 1 liter from a massive tank.
And finally, we looked at the if I had only structure for regret. This is where you wish the past were different, like if I had only studied harder. And here's a little bonus tip for our advanced listeners. You can actually remove the if and say, had I only known. It means the same thing, but it's much more formal and stiff. You might see it in a book or a very serious speech.
Whoa, had I only known. That sounds very fancy. I'll save that one for when I'm trying to impress someone at a library.
Use it wisely, Dan. But really, for most of our listeners, just getting comfortable with the only had flow is the best goal. As you practice, you'll start to get the hang of it. To get the hang of something means to learn how to do something, especially when it's not immediately obvious or simple.
It's all about those small repetitions. And remember, as we saw with some of the expert tips today, you don't always need to use the complicated had past perfect structure if a simple past tense like I only had works just as well. Don't make your English more complex than it needs to be.
That is such a good point. Clarity is always the goal. If you can say it simply and clearly, you're winning.
Well, I think my tea is finally at the perfect temperature. Anna, thank you for walking through these only puzzles with me today. It was actually much more fun than I expected.
It really was. And thank you to all of our listeners. We know English can feel like a mountain sometimes, but you are making progress every time you hit play on an episode. Don't forget to practice saying these phrases out loud while you go about your day. Maybe tell your cat, I only had 1 treat for you, and see if he understands the context.
My cat would definitely see that as a case 1 disaster.
Probably. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode of English Over Tea, Listen and Speak, please make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps other learners find the show. You can also visit our website to find more resources and transcripts to help you study.
We love hearing from you. So if you have a topic you're struggling with, maybe another tongue twister or a confusing grammar rule, send us a message. We might feature it in a future episode.
Absolutely. Keep practicing, keep listening, and most importantly, keep enjoying the journey. You're doing great.
Until next time, everyone, happy learning and enjoy your tea.
Bye for now.
See ya.